Hi, and welcome to the December 2015 episode of Planetary Calendar. I'm Lonnie D'Amicis, and my co-author Ralph is behind the camera, and this is Carol Cherry, our publisher.
Hello. Happy holidays. December 2015 is upon us. I think that the single most popular question I get at this time of year is, when does Hanukkah start? And this year, the first day of Hanukkah is on the 7th, so that means the first night will be on the 6th. It's always nice when they can be near one another. But yeah.
And of course, Hanukkah, the festival of lights, lighting the candles for 8 days in a row. So that brings us pretty close to the Christmas season, so that people who have mixed religions in their family or have friends who share different holidays can enjoy the same season.
It's nicer when it's a little later in the month and you get the same amount of shopping time after Thanksgiving, but there you have it. This year, it's starting on the Sunday night, the 6th.
And before that, we've got Jupiter on closest approach on the 3rd. So people are going to be feeling, the effects of Jupiter a little bit more strongly than usual. Jupiter is our planet of expansion and optimism, which is a great way to start out this holiday season.
And as a welcome change, the last few years we've had Jupiter retrograde at some point during the holiday gift-getting season, really, and that hasn't been very good for businesses, I think. This year, with Jupiter direct the whole time, although Jupiter's in Virgo, which isn't, say, as lavish as Jupiter in Leo or something like that. But, practical gifts will probably work out nicely. New shoes, new coat, hat, scarf,
Well, and together with that theme, we had mentioned in our November forecast, we were talking about the fact that Saturn and the Sun were conjunct in Sagittarius. So Saturn kind of put the brakes a little bit on the sunshine, and the generosity that normally would be associated with Sagittarius and Jupiter. So Jupiter going direct there can help to lighten that up just a little bit, at least so you can enjoy the season without going broke.
Well, and, making gifts, everybody loves to get made gifts, and that's a great way to be able to be as generous with the people that you want without breaking the bank. It's a little late in the season now to start knitting that scarf for Aunt Susie, but you get the idea. There's lots of great things to make and share.
Well, and then the fact that Venus enters Scorpio on the 4th, which of course is a black box day because when Venus changes signs and Mercury is squaring that Jupiter there, you wouldn't want to start anything new. But with Venus, Venus can be self-indulgent, and Scorpio is the sign of self-indulgent not. So that will help to rein in the overspending as well for the holiday season. So
yeah, kind of a shame for me about that Venus and Scorpio. I have a few friends, some couples who just seem to get on each other's nerves, while Venus is in Scorpio. I'm hoping that this year, with Mars in Libra and Venus and Mars in mutual reception, that perhaps that won't be such a strong issue. But, if that does turn out to be the case, if you do wind up with extra friction in your relationships, remember, it's just a transit. Really, once Venus moves into the next sign, and she's going to do that, move into Sagittarius on the 29th. So once she does, a lot of that nitpicky kind of stuff is just going to go away. So
well, but also remember what a transit is. A transit is an opportunity to use a planet in a different way. So when Venus goes into Scorpio, it's a chance for you to look at the way you relate to in a personal relationship and maybe transform that a little bit. Maybe look at the things that sort of bug you about the way you might communicate or the way that you might get along, and use it as an opportunity to open up a dialogue or make some changes in yourself. That doesn't even require the participation of someone else. If you say, this activity or this kind of behavior has bothered me for a long time, I'm going to go within myself and say, I'm going to change that. I'm not going to let it bother me anymore. These are things that you can do all on your own to transform the way that you react to something without actually creating friction with another person. So maybe this is the time. Maybe you say, it's about time for me to let go of that. That's what Venus in Scorpio wants you to do.
Maybe, I think Scorpio's got a rap for kind of controlling. People want to be in charge and want to be, but Scorpio's also very sexy. So maybe instead of just for this month, trying to tune out the criticalness, instead focus on the sexy. Maybe that's a good way. Or, Scorpio is also very interested in the occult and spirit things. Doing something spiritual with your partner, might be a good way to just veer away from the control issues of day-to-day life and focus on something else and be able to breathe new life and interest into your relationship that way, instead of just, deflecting the barbs, as it were.
Well, in Scorpio, what Scorpio may be related to power, may be related to sex, may be related to all these other things, but what it at its core is transformation. It is deep, not superficial, real profound transformation. And if you look at it in that way, you really can change many things about yourself and the way that you act with other people. And when it's power, it's not necessarily just power struggles with the opposite sex or in your relationships. It's how you use your power in an effective way. So these are all lessons that can be learned when you have transits that involve the Scorpio energy.
And that's very true. And likening Scorpio to the phoenix, that mythical bird that consumed itself in flame and is reborn from the ashes, is a great way to really drill down to that. Because so many people say, oh, Scorpio's intense, oh, Scorpio's this, oh, Scorpio's ruthless, even some people. And yes, it may be all of those things, but the bottom line is about transformation, and that's what it's supposed to do to help us.
Another symbol for Scorpio, of course, is the eagle. So, there are a lot of ways that you can view Scorpio. What is sort of ubiquitous about people's impressions about Scorpio is that Scorpio looks at things that you don't want to see or you don't want to admit. It goes down into the deeper, profounder level. And so that way you can draw on that energy and that power to bring the phoenix out of the ashes, or to have that eagle soar instead of going into the depths.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. But before we get too far into the month, I want to say that the first of the month is a circle day. So that's a great day to start new things. And we have Mercury trined with Uranus. Now, the day before was Cyber Monday for your holiday shopping. And here we have Tuesday, the 1st of December, with those great aspects for internet business, with Venus and Uranus both well aspected, and as I say, Mercury and trining Uranus. That's a great day to start the next promotion. So you did your Cyber Monday promotion. The next day is a great day to start with yet another one. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, the 6th is St. Nicholas Day. That's the traditional day that Santa Claus is coming to town.
I think that's his feast day. I think that's St. Nicholas's feast day in Christianity.
I understand. Isn't that when they have the parades and bring, Santa at Macy's and all of that? So, yeah.
Maybe. The 8th is another Tuesday. Bodhi Day in the Buddhist tradition is also another white circle day. Again, we have Uranus well aspected, trining the Sun with Jupiter well aspected, and Pluto. You almost get the feeling you could do another weekly promotion, for your internet sales there. But there's lots of great things that you can start, with the moon in Scorpio, when we just talked about Venus getting there also. So that looks like a harmonious day all around with the white circle.
Always, when you see Uranus prominent on a day, think of opportunities, ideas. The internet is very Uranian, unusual, breaking from the mold. So, that both of these white circle days, a week apart, really highlight. Use that Uranus energy in any creative way and that you can.
I think that's
Yeah.
a great idea. I mean, the year has really had a theme, much like last year, of personal change and liberation and getting ourselves back to who we sort of were meant to be. And sometimes the change, something new is as little as going to a new place for lunch. You never know who you're going to bump into. I mean, the whole world could change in a moment, especially when Uranus is well aspected in the sky.
Well, of course, the next day, the 9th, has a very different theme and a very different story. Mercury enters Capricorn. So now Mercury doesn't do that well in Capricorn. It's a little stifled. It's like Mercury is trying to talk, but his dad is sitting on his shoulder watching every word. So, so he enters there, and the moon has been void of course for most of the morning as the moon enters Sagittarius, which, Mercury would generally enjoy that moon in Sagittarius. And so, but in the beginning it's in Scorpio. So, the communications may be a little bit thwarted, maybe a little bit problematic. Again, when planets change signs, there's a little bit of turbulence, and that's why that black box day, you may not quite mean exactly what you said. You might have to really think about it over and over again, or you may just decide, Dad's watching, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. So it's not the greatest communication day.
I agree. Mercury is definitely subdued in the sign of Capricorn, but those of us who suffer with foot and mouth disease may be glad to see it moving on and may have to write some apology letters with Dad looking over our shoulder.
Exactly.
The 10th looks lively, though, with Mars
lively. What a great
Uranus.
word to describe the 10th.
Well, Moon in Sagittarius, people are outgoing, ambitious, optimistic. But that Mars opposing Uranus, it sounds like, it could be
Push
anything.
me, pull you, yeah.
Well, you could have a car accident and meet the love of your life. You never know. It's
be prepared.
Good and bad.
Be prepared. Kind of keep your eyes open and keep your eyes on everything, because it's a very exciting, kind of active, turbulent, anything goes kind of a day.
And you can really get the feel of this month. I mean, usually we're not talking about every single day, but that's what we've been doing so far. I mean, every single day. Here we are now on the 11th has the new moon, the 12th, 13th, and 14th, the Gemini meteor showers. So there's an awful lot going on, a lot of energy going on as we wrap up the year.
Which is kind of nice. The end of the year, things are kind of winding down in terms of your obligations, getting ready for the holiday season. So to have all these things that are spread out over a period of time instead of just being focused onto one day, every day kind of provides an opportunity for something. Again, the Geminid meteor showers, they usually last for a couple of days. Check your app on your phone for the Google Sky Map or whatever to see where you can see them, or if you would be able to see them, where they would be located, because that's a really fun way to kind of bring that into your life. We like to post that on Planetary calendars or Facebook if we get more information about where they would be visible.
Right. And the next week we have the Ursid meteor showers. Now that might look a little odd for those of you who are following along on your own planetary calendar, because there wasn't enough room on the 22nd to include the meteor shower peak there, but they will be peaking for that whole period, the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd. And that reminds me too, what we talked about just a moment ago about the 10th, about Mars opposing Uranus. That's not like that's the only day that affects that. Most of the aspects that you see, you're going to feel them from a couple days to even longer. I mean, with our larger aspects, like earlier in the year, we had the final Pluto-Uranus square. Those bodies move so slowly that they happen over a period of weeks even, but this Mars opposing Uranus is going to be over a couple of days also, and so it's important to bear that in mind.
That's a good point about the astrology, because we only note it on the calendar when that conjunction or that aspect is exact. Otherwise there'd be even more little marks all over all the pages of the calendar, and you just wouldn't even know what to do about that. So we try to, that's a very good point. There's a working up period and a falling off period that comes before and after the degree of being exact. And then, of course, we also wanted to mention the other black box day on the 18th. This is the first quarter moon, and we've got that sun square moon, of course, and really nothing else is happening to mitigate or to moderate that sun square moon. And then Jupiter is not in a harmonious aspect with the moon in Aries, so that's a day that wouldn't be good to start anything. Even so, there's also a void of course moon, which we don't always talk about, but when the moon is void of course, it means that it's made a classical aspect to the last planet it's going to aspect before it changes sign. So the last aspect of the moon in Pisces was at 7 o'clock in the morning, a little after 7 o'clock in the morning, and then it doesn't change into Aries until in the afternoon. And so it's kind of a wanderer. It doesn't really have a place to go or a person to meet. And so you find that you might have a day that sort of goes off kilter. Oh, you know, I got up in the morning and I thought I was going to really, you know, get some things done or tie some things up. Moon in Pisces often wants to finish a cycle, you know, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So that transition is very often a little bit difficult because the Pisces moon wants to bask in a job well done. And then Aries says, well, we're on to a whole new thing. So that could be a little bit problematic. And that's why there's a black box that day.
Right. Now the 19th also looks lively. I mean, it's got Mercury conjunct Pluto, and we have Uranus doubly well aspected, Jupiter doubly well aspected, and Saturn well aspected, while Mercury and Pluto are ill aspected. Now, isn't that interesting? On the one hand, the Mercury conjunct Pluto looks like a positive aspect, but both of those are not aspecting well with the moon, which is how they get to be under the number. At any rate, with Uranus doubly well aspected that day and Mercury conjunct Pluto, Pluto rules Scorpio. So all of those things that we said earlier about Scorpio, transformative and control and things like that.
With that Venus
it's also
in
similar
Scorpio.
about Pluto, you know. Yes. And so when those two are conjunct, I mean, that's a great day to talk about your deepest needs, your hopes, your fears, your dreams, perhaps for the new year, as you know, that transformative energy sort of liberates our communication energy.
Or the new season, because we've got winter starting on the 21st with the winter solstice on the 21st as the sun moves into Capricorn.
Yule on the 22nd, and then the main event for many people in December is Christmas. Christmas Eve will be on the 24th, and on the evening on the 24th, the moon moves into Cancer, so it's going to be a really homey holiday. It'll be great, very fulfilling to have family around. On the 25th, we have a number of aspects, but probably most auspiciously, I guess, would be that Uranus turning direct, and that's the last retrograde planet that we've have going on right now. So once Uranus goes direct on the 25th, sort of it's an all systems go, full steam ahead kind of a feeling through the end of the year.
At least you can't blame anything on the fact that some planet or another is retrograde. They're all going to be direct, so you can really plug into the energy of whatever their message is for you in regard to how they're transiting your chart.
New Year's Eve has the moon in Virgo for most of the day, and then just as 10:40 p.m., the moon moves into Libra, reminding us about moderation and balance that late in the day. You might want to think about it ahead of time.
Well, I don't know. The reminder of moderation and balance may come at a good time after Venus enters Sagittarius on the 29th.
Really? That sounds like a party girl to me.
Venus is very, expansive in Sagittarius, could overdo it on the sweets and the fun and the enjoyment. So maybe reining in those reins a little bit at the end of the year is not a bad.
We have the moon in Virgo, which is a little bit more roped in, on the 29th and the 30th. And then come the 31st, we have Jupiter doubly well aspected. So that seems like a really lucky Lucky day
I think
for
the
growth.
party's back on.
Well, so we wish you the happiest of holidays and a wonderful new year and all the best throughout 2016. Thanks so much for spending time with us through 2015. We've really enjoyed getting to share our information with you.
And we continuously share information with you. You can always find us at planetarycalendar.com or spaceandtime.com. And of course, hit us up on Facebook. We try to add little details that we may have missed in our telecast here onto our Facebook page. So say hello and mention that you saw us.
Happy New Year.
Hi, I'm Ralph D'Amicis, one of the astrologers for the Planetary Calendar. Every year, we do a Chinese New Year forecast. It's kind of the set point, and we do it because it's the most widely celebrated festival in the year, and it's also the time when the energy on the Earth is most withdrawn. It's really the springtime festival in China, and so we find that it has a lot of power. Whatever happens during the Chinese New Year week tends to resonate for the entire year. And we've been doing this forecast for many years, and it takes me a lot of work to do. Lonnie and I do it together, and it's a lot of work to do. But I'm just going to give you a little preview of what's coming up in 2016 via the Chinese New Year, which this year takes place on February 8th, 2016, and it's a fire monkey. And I have to tell you, monkey years are fun, generally speaking. If you know monkey people, they're just a lot of fun. It's a very entertaining year for a lot of reasons. And it relates very much to the sign Leo. You know, Leo is a heart-based sign, and Leos are generally fun. I think every family should have at least one Leo just for the fun of it. So this year is not an early spring. This concept of the early spring, you know, the little groundhog comes out and sees a shadow or doesn't see a shadow in the early spring, is actually based upon where in Aquarius does the new moon land. Because it can show up anytime within those 30 days of the, Aquarius, from, the beginning of, about the 20th of January up to the 20th of February, I mean. And last year, 2015, it was very, very early. There were two new moons, one at the beginning and one at the end. We actually did a forecast for both and found that the one at the beginning was the effective one, and everything resonated from there, even though all the festivals were actually done based on the second one, probably to have more time to put the floats together. But the first one was really the active one, and it was a very early spring. In fact, out here in wine country in California, we had a very early spring. I think the whole harvest of grapes will come in really early too. But this year, it's right about the middle. It's actually at the 19th degree of Aquarius, so it's kind of middle, a little late. It's about a normal year in that. It's an interesting year for a bunch of reasons. One, we have a Venus Mercury Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. It's going to be a very practical year, especially because at the same time you have Jupiter in Virgo. It's a very practical position for Jupiter. Jupiter has to do with what kind of chances you're willing to take. How much are you willing to throw the dice? How much are you willing to take that leap? And it's in Virgo, which is a very practical sign. It's about health. It's about taking care of people. And that Jupiter is trining all this stuff in Venus and Mercury. So I think we can see some really good practical work this year in our society about global health. I think we're going to see a lot of that going on. I think you will probably see a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Don't be surprised if there's things like, birth control going on secretly with that Pluto conjunct the Venus. This has been going on for a bunch of years, but I think it might be a little more overt this year. One of the things we actually do when we do this chart is we use a thing called astrocartography. It shows where the planets are over in the sky above the countries. It's really interesting and it's very powerful. This year, we have Saturn overhead. Saturn in Sagittarius, albeit, which is a pretty positive position, but we have Saturn right over the heartland of the United States. So it's going to be a bit of a reality check. On the other hand, Saturn in Sag is an ambitious sign. I think people may become more ambitious. There may be a bit of a leap forward in the conservative movement. Saturn's very conservative, but Sagittarius is about religion. But we may find that in the heartland, it may feel a little bit like there's a little bit of a wet blanket going on. Off the coast of California, we have Mars and Juno, and going up into Canada. I think there's a fairly good chance we're going to see quite a few earthquakes up along the Alaskan coast, but that's actually not unusual. The ones who really shine this year is Rio de Janeiro, Rio. They have the sun and moon right over Rio, right over the tip of Brazil, and they are getting after already for the Olympics, so it's not surprising. We have a Uranus line going up through Austria, up through Nigeria, Geneva, Warsaw. It would not be surprising. We saw a pattern like this last year. It would not be surprising if we saw, explosions, terrorist activity up along that line. We had the same indicator last year, and it showed up right along that line. It's not a nice indicator, but it's good to know about. We also may find that Argentina may suffer from some financial reverses or tightening. It may be after the South America has really risen tremendously in the last number of years, we may find that there's a certain belt tightening going on in Argentina. And a certain amount of, could it be fiscal responsibility in Washington, D.C.? It could happen. It could happen. One never knows. Now, on a personal level, the real player this year is interesting, is Mars and Scorpio. And people a lot of times think, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Well, that's a modern rulership. That's not the true rulership. The true ruler is Mars and Scorpio. Scorpio is the feminine side of Mars, the way that Aries is the masculine sign. And Mars is highly elevated over the United States this year in Scorpio. And I have to let you know who's a Scorpio woman? Hillary Clinton. Interesting, huh? I'm just saying. So women power this year, very, very important. So see you next year. Come back and listen to some more forecasts with Carol and Lonnie, and have a great new year.